Welcome back to another episode of Ignite News from Mohawk College. I'm Rowan Garrow. Today we're going to be taking a look at some of the stories submitted by Mohawk College's journalism students, from career fairs to rescue animals and even miniature soldiers. Looking for a new place to grab some coffee and maybe do some work? A new cafe has opened up in Westdale, and guess what? It's just next door. Jamie Byers visited the cafe and has the story.
Next Door Cafe recently opened its doors for the very first time. This small shop has both indoor and outdoor seating and is decorated with custom artwork and coffee-themed knickknacks. Louise Saldagna says her first visit to the cafe was a positive experience.
It's so cute. I would definitely love to come back here. It seems like a nice place to study. The owners are super nice, and the coffee was amazing. I loved it.
Owner of Next Door Cafe, Iris Chow, says the shop sells a variety of baked goods and caffeinated beverages.
We are specialized in our espresso drinks, so we don't do regular brew coffee. It's just because we are so small and it's really hard for us to keep the coffee fresh at all times. So yeah, espresso drinks, and I love latte art. I've been working as a barista since I was 15, so I would say I really recommend our lattes in flat white. And then we also have tea lattes, we have matcha and chai.
The cafe is located at 990 King Street West and is open Tuesday to Sunday from 8 a.m. until 6 p.m., with future plans to remain open on Mondays as well. For Mohawk College Journalism, I'm Jamie Byers.
Can you hear me? I sure hope so. Sound is an important part of all of our lives, and it's something that we often overlook. Here are two stories covered by the Mohawk journalism students all about sound.
Every few months, a new exhibit opens up at Joseph Brant Museum. This month, the traveling exhibit Sound, Just Sound, started its 4-month run at the Historical Museum. After traveling through the permanent part of the museum, featuring items and stories exploring the history of Burlington, guests enter the exhibit room, filled with stations exploring all the different parts of experiencing sound. There are diagrams of the human ear and explanations of how to take good care of your ears by not exposing them to loud sounds that could potentially damage them. Jessica Benjak-Watros, the museum curator, explained the target audiences of the exhibit.
Basically, it's on the science of sound, and with all the interactives in the exhibit, all of the activities and hands-on and experiments that are here, it's geared towards all ages, which is really great. So then we can have, everyone from the community come and visit, not just, young kids and families, but adults as well.
Many of the stations are interactive and give guests the opportunity to play games and customize their experience at the exhibit. Attendees could try and match the invention date to various audio recording and playback formats, use a device to hear sounds with more than just their ears, and figure out how high or low of a pitch their ears were capable of hearing. Benjak-Watros says the event is not just about sound, though.
I think it's great because it touches on all of the senses, really, because there are parts of the exhibit that focus not on just, hearing sound, but also seeing sound as well.
Sound, Just Sound runs from now until March 30th at Joseph Brant Museum. For Mohawk College Journalism, I'm Jack Brittle.
The Chamber of Commerce partnered with local artists to kick off the Hamilton Day weekend celebrations with Sonic Runway. Many people came out to see the art installation that translates sound into patterns of light. Hamilton Day was first celebrated in 1931 to boost morale during the Great Depression.
Cut to 90 years later, we're in the middle of the COVID-19 pandemic, very similar economic challenges, very low morale as well. So we thought, let's take this great, amazing idea that we had 90 years ago, reinvent it for a more modern context and see what happens. And we thought it would be a one-off event, but the community so strongly rallied behind it, which was amazing. We had to make it annual. So now we're going into our 3rd year, and Hamilton Day has expanded into a 4-day celebration.
There was something for all ages to enjoy at the runway, from the interactive butterfly effect, where people could breathe fall to life inside a bubble, to Pepe the smiling Hamilton Day mascot. This Hamiltonian was sugared up and ready to enjoy the event after eating free donuts from Donut Monster.
I love supporting local. I love the idea of Hamilton Day and what it means to the community, bringing us together, introducing us to new businesses in the community, encouraging us to support the community and build up the community. And that's really why I'm here.
Visitors could receive free glow sticks from staff before walking through the runway to meet a fire spinner on the other side. The art installation will be open at Pier 8 with various events happening simultaneously until the end of the month. For Mohawk College Journalism, I'm Stephanie Ribson.
When we think about art, we usually think about big things, like this mural right behind me. But how about something small? Smaller. Callum O'Malley covered the Sword and Brush Miniature Expo and filed this report.
The annual Sword and Brush Miniature and Figure Modeling Expo took place this morning at the Holiday Inn in Burlington. Historical, science fiction, and fantasy models were on display in the convention hall, as hobbyists voted on what they thought was the best in show. Some of the painters at the event had been doing this for years, as longtime hobbyist Aidan DeLorme said.
I've been hobbying since I was about 9 years old, so that's probably 13 years at this point. So hobby's been a big part of my life so far. I was one of the kids that just walked by Games Workshop in the mall every day and seeing cool little miniatures on the table, people rolling dice. Colors and fantasy always brought me into it.
Models from Warhammer, Star Trek, Lord of the Rings, and more were competing for the highest grade, as attendees took notes on which figure stood out. Each entry would be graded and given a ranking of gold, silver, or bronze. And other awards, like Best in Show, were up for grabs as well.
So last year, my Lord of the Rings diorama won a bronze for its overall completion, cleanliness, and all that sort of stuff. With the Titan of Body, I'm hoping to at least bump that up to maybe a silver, but with the competition that we have today and the idols of the community that are here, I'm just happy to see everyone else's stuff, really.
With the show taking place on Remembrance Day, a special themed award would be given out to whichever model best represented the theme of remembrance. The Sword and Brush Expo was created to bring people in the community together, as the organizer of the event, Alex McCutcheon, said.
The idea behind Sword and Brush is really to encourage people to get out and paint and share their work with others and really kind of see what everybody else that kind of does this hobby in isolation is doing and bring like-minded enthusiasts together and celebrate all the different aspects of the hobby.
From Mohawk College Journalism, I'm Callum O'Malley.
You've probably heard of a stag and doe. It's a fun party that's there to raise money for couples getting married. Well, Salty Animal Rescue threw a wag and doe, which was a fundraising event for young animals who are probably not getting married. Jade Deanna has the story.
From raffle prizes to various games, live music, food, and a bar. At first glance, you'd think this event was your average stag and doe. But you'd come to find it's much more than that. The Salty Animal Rescue's second annual Wag and Doe took place on Thanksgiving weekend, and despite the holidays, people showed up to support the animals. Carly Saltarski, co-founder of Salty Animal Rescue, talks about the event and sheds light on the current animal crisis and the overpopulation at shelters.
There's a huge animal crisis right now, huge overpopulation. So right now a lot of animals are being euthanized just solely due to no room. So there are kill shelters in Hamilton. A lot of animals' lives are being lost right now, and we're kind of trying our best to help who we can.
The shelter is 100% volunteer-based and tries to set aside a chunk of money for every animal they take in to cover any costs, making fundraisers like this extremely important. Sarah Wakeman, event coordinator, talks about her involvement with the rescue and the importance of fosters.
For every animal that we take in, we try to set aside $1,000. And keep in mind, we are 100% volunteer-based. Nobody gets paid. When you foster with us, we take care of all of the costs. If you need any sort of items, food, toys, whatever you think for that animal that's in your care, we're gonna go on Amazon and we're gonna send it directly to your door. We are gonna support you as a foster that way. We're here to raise money and we're here to raise awareness and just let people know who we are.
People at the Wag and Doe were seen spending their money for a good cause. For Mohawk College Journalism, I'm Jade Deanna.
That was a really heartwarming story, so grab your tissue boxes and get ready for another, because this documentary is about how you can adopt an animal in Hamilton.
Humane Society is a place where animals can be brought or taken when they're sick or injured or homeless. And through our doors, we have over 3,500 animals come here every year needing some form of care or support. They come in two ways. Either owners can bring them in or our officers will bring them in. Typically, an owner might relinquish an animal because they can no longer care for it. We first try to help them with resources to keep their animal because it's always best to keep the family together. And if that doesn't work, we do provide a service where we can put those animals up for adoption in our shelter and find a new forever home.
So this is Francis, and he came in as a stray. Someone actually found him in the forest while they were going for a hike. And he kind of just went up to them and was rubbing on their legs. So they brought him in. I thought for sure someone was going to claim him just because he kind of has that unique marking to him. And he was neutered, but nobody came. So now he's just up for adoption. But he's super sweet.
One challenge that we found is that black cats have a hard time getting adopted. Black dogs somewhat, but not so much. We have really no problem adopting out dogs, and we bring dogs in from other countries because I'd suggest that there is a shortage of dogs in southern Ontario. So we've brought them in from Mexico, from Bolivia, Cayman Islands, Louisiana, even South Korea through Humane Society International.
We're doing an adoption event. We brought up 65 dogs, and we're just trying to find them all really good homes. They all have different likes and dislikes, and we just want the perfect homes for each of them, you know. We have dogs out in the tent, and we have cats inside, so there's plenty for adoption.
Over the years, I've developed very, very good relationships with a lot of y'all up here, and then because of that, it just it was a perfect fit to make the rescues really work all the way through. I found dogs that were very badly in need of rescuing. You people have the perfect, wonderful, giving homes for these dogs, and then it like I said, it just works out perfect. I mean, that's why we drive 2 days to get up here.
The one fell down a storm drain, and so I guess some people that were walking heard the kitten crying and the mother crying. So they called the Humane Society. The Humane Society called Niagara Falls Community Cats, and they all went out and they tried to figure, like, the mother wasn't going to go down because it was just too dangerous. But so Pam decided she was going to put a board down, and the mother went down and got the kitten by the scruff of the neck and brought her back up.
I've never applied to be a foster necessarily. I've kind of just been in situations where people are like, we need somebody to take this animal right now, and I'm like, okay. The reason why it's important is because that's how those animals are going to get saved. So if you think about in a situation where you have neonatal kittens, they need care instantly. So if there's nobody that's willing to take care of them, then they could pass away because they don't get the care that they need right away. That's another thing that makes adoption so important over going to a breeder, is that if you go to a breeder is somebody who is continually bringing dogs into the world where we already have so many that need homes, whereas when you're adopting, you're giving a home to a dog that already exists, or a cat.
Especially working from home, I spend a lot of time in my house, and with the coronavirus and everything, socialization wasn't really an option all the time. You were constantly alone, and it was very lonely. It was saddening at times because, I wouldn't leave my house for a few days at a time, and it would be really, really hard. But now that I have her, she forces me to go outside and go for walks and, play in the yard, and she makes me go out and do things just because, that's what she needs. And it's amazing to be in the home with her because I find myself talking to her all the time, just having regular conversation. But it's just so comforting to have someone else here. And I honestly feel like she understands me sometimes because just the way that she looks at me.
So Jessica
Jessica came to our adoption event, and she has decided that she's going to adopt Nina. There's just some special things about Nina that she really connected with, and she's decided that this is the one for her. So we're just loading her up and getting her ready to go home. Hi, Nina. So this is Nina, and she's in her new home.
I got so lucky. Nina is such a great cat. It's been so rewarding letting this animal into my life and bringing her home into a place where she can be comfortable and really flourish. She's found lots of spaces to curl up around the house and is definitely making this her new home. At 13 months old, she still has a lot of kitten spirit in her, and I can't wait to see where this adventure takes us.
If you're standing in a smoking area like this, you're probably expecting to smell cigarette smoke, not cotton candy or mango. But in the past couple years, vaping has become increasingly popular, especially amongst young people, as this documentary that you're about to see will show you.
For many years, smoking cigarettes was a norm in society. It took decades for people to realize the harm cigarettes were doing to their bodies. In 2003, China developed an electronic cigarette device to help people quit smoking. Since then, e-cigarettes or vapes have been quickly emerging all over the world. E-cigarettes or vapes are electronic devices that are tobacco-free, yet still provide the dopamine reliefs that come with nicotine. Vapes have taken on many different forms over the last decade. However, the latest and more popular kind is a pod or disposable device. My name is Malika Aldridge, and I noticed that many people around me have developed an addiction to vaping, whether they were former cigarette smokers or not. But I want to know why. Why is it so addicting? Is it the experience, the flavors, the nicotine? I personally don't know, so I went to interviewing people to find out. I spoke to a vape club manager, a doctor, 2 vapors, and even a teen vapor to find out. First, I needed to understand why certain people vape, so I asked Kimberly Yvonne and Cassie Apperlew to explain why vaping is a part of their daily routine.
I had a friend and her boyfriend worked at a vape store, so naturally she got one, and then they tasted much better than cigarettes that I don't quite have vertigo, but I'm very sensitive to getting dizzy, so that head rush of a cigarette sometimes, it would be one puff too many would put me over the edge if I was out drinking with friends or anything like that. So the idea of having a vape that didn't smell and seemed more professional was kind of what appealed to me about it. But just like having it on me and okay, I'm bored right now, I want to do something with my hands, I'll grab it. And then, so it's not really the flavoring, but it's definitely between like the nicotine and the habit of just something easy to grab to do something with my hands.
Logistically, it's convenient. It's one of those mindless things that I can just do. Like I can just, half the time I don't even realize that I'm doing it. You know what I mean? It's always in my hand. It's always beside me. Whether I'm like working or, driving, I find that I have a hard time driving if I don't have it with me. I don't know. Logistics, what else? I get to do it inside too. There's no, I don't have to go outside of the office. I don't have to go outside of my apartment to smoke anymore. I don't have to bundle up in the cold weather in the winter. Doing it in an environment where I feel super duper comfortable and cozy. I can be in my footy pajamas, smoking or vaping. I think that has a lot to do with it. Just the fact that I can do it constantly.
It's clear that some people vape for various reasons depending on the person. But with the minimal research out there, do vapors ever wonder what it's doing to their bodies?
There's not enough research about it, and even though it's lacking a lot of the chemicals that cigarettes have, we don't know what else is in it. And I think when I first kind of started to as well, and those big modification ones, the big ones, were popular, and then you really started hearing about popcorn lung. And then people making underground pods and flavors and stuff, and so that kind of made me nervous, and that made me take a little bit more caution, and that was actually what kind of stopped me vaping the very first time that I started. So I do have concerns because I know I can't quite walk like I used to, and I can't quite go up the stairs like I used to, and I haven't even been to the gym since I started vaping again, so I don't honestly want to know what's going to happen if I try to squat. I don't. So I definitely have a lot of like health concerns as well too, especially just like the unknown. My biggest fear is especially how much I'm hitting it. If one day I'm going to be like, oh, I myself over.
Respirology specialist Dr. Marcel Tunks is a professor at McMaster University who sat down to explain the effects vaping can have on one's body.
The general principle is that you are heating up a substance, some kind of solvent, to dissolve a drug, whether it's nicotine or a cannabis product, and usually with some kind of flavoring to make the experience more pleasant. And then you inhale it. So these are a number of different chemicals that can have different effects on the lungs. They're all going to be irritants. They're all going to cause irritation. So cough, you're much more likely to develop asthma if you vape as opposed to not vaping. Bronchitis, so your friends might catch a cold, but you end up with a cough that goes on for weeks or months instead of just getting a cold like your friends do. So those would be the most common things, that you're inhaling irritants that either irritate the lining of the lung or they cause irritation or injury to the immune cells. The irritation or injury to the immune cells can cause further lung injury on its own. It can impair the immune function within your lungs, so you're more likely to get infections, or it can trigger those immune cells to injure your lungs. And that's where you hear about things like popcorn lung and that sort of thing, hypersensitivity pneumonitis, lung injuries, the kind of scary but rare events that land people in hospital from vaping. Those are mostly related to the immune system reacting to those chemicals, especially the flavoring agents, sometimes the solvents, so the vegetable glycerin or the propylene glycol.
I am like so concerned about what I'm doing to my body, but can I stop? Not really. I don't know if there will ever be a time in my life where I can stop, mostly just because I'm in school right now, I work full time, my life is pretty stressful. This is kind of what gets me through the day and what keeps my head from spinning out of control when I'm working. I don't know, maybe if my life calms down, I'll find it in myself to quit, but I think right now with where I'm at, it's really, really hard. But I do panic sometimes about like what I'm doing to myself. I've been smoking since I was like 11 or 12, so I'm already like over 10 years on nicotine, and I'm like, I don't know what's in this, you know what I mean? Like, I don't know what I'm putting inside my body.
The drug is what keeps you addicted, right? So the nicotine is the main thing. The nicotine in vape products comes from tobacco. It's all the tobacco industry. It's been the tobacco industry from the beginning as far as nicotine vapes. And that's what makes you a return customer for life, is the nicotine part of things.
When I asked Vape Club manager Stuart Gold about what draws people to vaping, here's what he had to say.
I would say most people are looking to replace cigarettes. I would hope so anyways. I got off smoking cigarettes about 6 years ago now with vaping and haven't looked back ever since, haven't touched a cigarette since. I think most people are looking to use vapes as a way to curb their cigarette addiction or their cigarette use. Of course, there's still nicotine in vapes, and nicotine is addictive. But again, the avoidance of all those extra hundreds of chemicals that are in cigarettes that make them even much more addictive and are even much more harmful than vapes is definitely a reason why people go to vapes instead. And also the experience of the flavors too. There's something to be said for that as well. If you look at cigarettes, I mean, they all taste like cigarettes, like tobacco or like chemicals. With vapes, you've got this wide assortment of tropical flavors and different flavors to choose from.
One of the big issues with vaping, though, is you are at least doubling or tripling the risk of going on to smoke cigarettes later anyway. And as a smoking cessation aid, it just doesn't work that well. So it helps a little bit. So an individual person might quit smoking by switching to vaping. Most of them are going to still be vaping a year later. But on the whole, it has increased the rate of smoking in our population because as kids are smoking more than they were before.
In Canada, the legal age to vape is 19 years old. And due to the amount of underage vapers, Canada recently banned 50 millimeters of nicotine in vape juice to reduce the appeal to youth. However, that hasn't stopped all youth from vaping. I asked 16-year-old Lincoln High about his experiences as a teen vapor.
So, when did you start vaping?
Probably when I was like 13-ish. It was just like a bunch of my friends all had one at the same time, and it all came in a wave. And then I ended up trying one, and I liked it. and I got my own, and then it's just been ever since then. I've just been kind of using one. Like when I'm out like socially and stuff, I don't know, like it's always around me, so I'm like, okay, well, I might as well do it. Kind of hard to like ignore and not use one or be around one. Like definitely when I'm out with people, that's when I do it the most probably. When I play sports and stuff, I can't breathe as well, and definitely like can't play for as long. Yeah, I definitely cough a lot, like pretty often.
Kids have always been the target for the tobacco companies, so for nicotine products in general, and for the cannabis industry as well. Kids are more susceptible to addiction in general, like their brains are still developing and it's easier for those addiction pathways to form when they get exposed to addictive substances. And they also perceive risk differently. So the parts of the brain that are involved with understanding risk don't mature really until you hit around age 25. It's far better for those companies to target all their social media and other influences on the younger people because it's easier to get them addicted. As far as the lungs themselves, lung development does continue until age 25, and it is possible to injure the lungs in a way that they stop developing. So your lungs never get as good as they should have been, and it can cause permanent injury later on. But the lung side of things, it's not good for you no matter what. There's no one who's going to say that inhaling these substances is good for your lungs in any way. The big problem is the addiction side of things. It'll be decades before we know all the different health effects in the long term. We know in the short term, if you vape for a few weeks, a few months, we know that you're going to have more respiratory symptoms than somebody who doesn't vape. And we know that some people land in the hospital, some people end up with permanent injuries to their lungs, which are relatively rare, but 10, 20 years out, we don't know.
So there you have it. Vaping is indeed an rising epidemic. Whether that's teens or adults, we don't know what's actually going to happen later on. But for now, we know it's an addicting substance that can cause respiratory issues later on in life.
And that was our show. Thank you for tuning in to another episode of Ignite News from Mohawk College. I'm Rowan Garrow. Until next time.